She will keep going. Are you sure? Not me. Let's do it. So we described one type of cells that make up the nervous tissue. And I told you we have two types of cells, which means that now I'm going to describe the second type of cells that make up the nervous tissue. And the name of these cells are neuroglia. And it's a group of cells. It's not, I lied to you, it's not just a cell. It's a group of cells. And the cool thing is that you might think by now that the neurons are the most numerous type of cells in the nervous tissue. Is it? Actually, neuroglia outnumber neurons. I don't remember honestly the ratio, but there's way more neuroglia than neurons. That's something to check. Maybe in the discussion, in the class discussion, we can look for the ratio. Now, neuroglia, remember their role is just to be there for neurons, to pamper neurons with a palm tree branch, to give them some air, to bring the food, almost to chew the food, to give it to them, something like that. That's the function of neuroglia. So we have in total 6 types of cells, of neuroglial cells. 4 of them are in the central nervous system and 2 of them are in the peripheral nervous system. Do not confuse them. These are always test questions. Now, let's start describing the cells of the central nervous system, the neuroglial cells of the central nervous system. And we're going to start with the astrocytes. Astrocytes are quite some cells. And in the last years, there's a lot of research going on of these cells because apparently they're not just there to pamper the neurons. They might be involved in the electrical in the conduction of the electrical current by the neurons. These cells, look at them in here. Let me show you this green one. It's an astrocyte. So see that with one arm they're grabbing this is a blood vessel in there. And with the other arm they're grabbing the neuron. So it's hanging like this. And what it's doing is that from the blood vessel, it's sucking up the glucose, mainly the glucose, but other nutrients, and just like a bird. And then processes that, cleans it to make sure that everything is good, and then it barfs it and gives it to the neuron. That's one of the functions of the astrocytes. They grab the glucose and other nutrients from the blood vessels, from the capillaries, and give it to the neurons. And not only glucose, ions, sodium, potassium ions, they control the perfect environment in the perfect concentrations of ions that the cell requires in order to transmit the electrical signal. They also can regulate calcium concentrations to promote, it is amazing, to promote the electrical current or electrical potential, action potential propagation. Astrocyte. Have you heard about astrocytomas? They're tumors of those cells, astrocytes. Microglia, let me show you one in here. Micro because they're little tiny cells. They're not neural cells. Actually, they are macrophages. Remember the macrophages? And they do like any other macrophage do, and is just engulf and eat any foreign molecule pathogen that might get into this tissue. Okay, ependymal cells are cells that they are kind of an epithelium, as you can see them in here in purple. They line there's a canal and some chambers within the brain and the spinal cord, And that canal and chambers are lined with this epithelium, the ependymal epithelium, the ependymal cells. They have cilia, and they are involved in the production and mostly circulation with the cilia of the cerebrospinal fluid, the spinal fluid. We describe later. And the oligodendrocytes are only present in the central nervous system. And look at them, these pinkish cells in here. And what they do is they grab only the axons of these cells, of the neurons, and they create an insulating membrane or layer around the axon. And what it does is like any insulation in the cable. What it does is just to keep the current inside, avoiding the leaking of the ions that are creating the electrical current. And they also speed up the propagation of these action potentials. Now, let's see now the neuroglia of the peripheral nervous system. And we have only two, remember, just two cells in here. We have a satellite cell that, just like a satellite, it's around something, and this one is wraps or surrounds only the body of the cell, okay? And the second type of cells, I don't have the name in here, they're called Schwann cells. And Schwann cells wraps the axon, just like the oligodendrocyte does in the central nervous system. We have Schwann cells that do that, the same thing, but in the peripheral nervous system. And what they do, look at the Schwann cell, and they imagine that this is the axon, this is the Schwann cell, this is all the membrane of the Schwann cell. What does that cell membrane consist of? It's a bilayer of lipids, remember, in some proteins. So it's a lipoprotein. So we're going to, or the Schwann cell is going to wrap around the axon, creating a layer. And this layer can be thin like that, or you can keep going and going and going and make it really fat. The fat, or the thicker this membrane or this myelin sheath, which is the name of this myelin sheath is, the faster the axon is. The faster it will propagate the action potential. The thinner it is, the slower this axon is. And there are axons that are just not covered by myelin, and we call them unmyelinated axons, or non-myelinated axons. Now, again, remember, this consists of mostly lipoproteins. It's cell membrane wrapped around the axon. So looking here, this is a multipolar neuron. Here is the soma with the dendrites and all the organelles. And in yellow in here, I can see the axon with the electrical current. Okay, negative in here, positive in there. And all of these sections are Schwann cells, or individual Schwann cells that grab different sections of the axons, but they don't touch each other. Okay, they grab the axon in this part and then in this part, and in between there is a gap. Can you see? This is what we call the node of Ranvier. So the section of a myelin sheath where the Schwann cell is called the internode, and the naked part of the axon is the node of Ranvier. And what it does is, as I told you before, speed up the action potential and prevents that electrical current falls or leaks out of the axon. Now, how does this work? Well, what is faster? Let's see, if I am right here and I want to go here to this effector organ, and I walk all the way around. Let's walk all the way, and walk all the way to deliver my electrical potential, my action potential, to the target organ. Okay? That's what an unmyelinated axon does. This axon is myelinated. So what it does is that the action potential that begins in this area, the beginning of the axon, is called the axon hillock. I don't know if I told you that before. It jumps from node to node. So it goes from node to node, from node to node, skipping. So it gets here faster, okay? It's faster if I just throw you this from here to there than if I walk all the way there to take it to you, right? So that's the way it acts, the myelin sheath. Remember, the thicker this myelin sheath, the faster the axon is. Pain, for example, is conducted by unmyelinated axons. Thanks for our creator for doing that. Thanks to that, we don't feel all the sensation, okay, all the pain that is really being produced in that injury. We just feel a fraction of that because it's like the turtle, is it goes slowly to deliver the pain signal to the brain. Okay, information about, for example, body position, proprioception that I think I didn't mention. I have to edit that on the first video. Proprioception is a somatic reception, a somatic sensation that awares the central nervous system about body position. So these receptors are located on the muscles, skeletal muscles, the joints, and they measure the degree of extension or flexion of the articulation. So it lets the brain know at every given second what is the position of the body. If we, by any reason, we lose the balance, or we just lose the change of position of the body, that information is sent really fast, of course, through thick myelinated axons to the central nervous system. So the central nervous system can make the adjustments necessary in order to keep the balance, equilibrium, and not put a show. See you in the next video.